Okay. This is the second lecture for Psych 1, and we left talking about structuralism, one of the isms, but there's no longer any structuralists. Remember I said there was 8, but it's actually 4. Structuralism is one of the isms, but most structuralists now are Gestalt psychologists, so there's no more structuralists. The next one, which is functionalism, keyword being function, is another one of the early isms. Ism means school of psychology, and there's no more functionalists. They're behaviorists now. So that's why you said there's 8, but it's actually 4. We already eliminated 2 in structuralists and functionalists. That's why if your homework, you notice that there's only 4 areas, philosophies that you could pick from. Well, functionalism, again, is the key. And in America, we don't really care about how things work. We just care about the bottom line. William James was the first American psychologist. He wrote the first American psych book, The Principles of Psychology. It's still used today at Harvard. Of course, it's been updated. And William James is famous for establishing applied psychologies like forensic, health, ed psych, sports psychology. And he said, when you break things down, something gets lost in translation. So the thing is, if it works, do it. He's the first, I guess, Nike guy, because that's what he said. If it works, we don't have to care how it works. We just care it works. So functionalism was, again, an area where America's kind of started in America. Then most functionalists are now behaviorists. And behaviorist, the key word is behavior, and we only study behavior. And it's only behavior that we can see. And I know that I'm talking ludicrous here. I'm not talking about the rapper. I'm talking about the idea that if a tree falls in the forest and nobody saw it fall, it didn't fall. Well, we know it fell, but to a behaviorist, we only study things we can see. And behaviorism is American psychology. However, it started in Russia with Pavlov. Does the name Pavlov ring a bell? It's an old psych joke. But Pavlov was a physician, internist. Matter of fact, he got the Nobel Prize for medicine way back when. And he discovered that dogs were conditioned to certain sounds to salivate. And so he left it like that. But he did discover S-R, which means there's association between stimulus and response. And John Brody Watson, which is the father of American behaviorism, saw that, studied what Pavlov wrote, and developed a psychology from that. And today, and Watson was the one who said we only study overt behavior that we can see. So Watson wouldn't study love because we can't see love. We can see acts of love, but there may not be love. But if you can see it, you can measure it. And if you measure it, we study it. And then modern psychology, of course, is B.F. Skinner. And B.F. Skinner said that all behavior is controlled by the environment. You control the environment, you control behavior. So that's one of the true isms we still have today. Okay. The next one I want to talk about is Gestalt. And Gestalt is one of the 4 major isms. And most structuralists are Gestalt now in 2020. Gestalt study on what affects perception. Remember, structuralists say everything was sensation and perception. Well, the Gestalt believe that too, and they study what affects perception. Lack of sleep, drug, get hit by a 2x4, all kinds of reasons why our perceptions are affected. And they study what affects perception and how that affects problem solving and memory and so forth. And they believe the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, which means if you break a car down into all its parts and lay it on the ground, that's not a car. Because a car is a vehicle that's supposed to transport you. Those pieces don't transport you. Even though it's all the car, it's not a car. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And we have three, because we have to learn names here, we have three Gestalt therapists. Wertheimer's the one pictured in the book, the guy with the beard. Kohler, which did insight learning, and then Kafka. So those are the three names associated with it, because when you do your homework, if you score high in G and says who you're going to have lunch with, you have to pick one of those three people. Okay, and then psychoanalysis is the other big one, and that's Freudian, right? And Freud worked with abnormal patients, and a lot of people say that he was a pervert, and there's a lot of sex in Freud's theory. There is, but you take the sex out, it still holds water, and you got to look at the zeitgeist period of the time, because at that time there were in the 1900s, women married for social status. They didn't marry for love, and so his first 24 patients, 23 of them were women, and they all complained about the lack of love and terrible sex because they were in relationships they really didn't want to be in. Freud had some sexual problems, so he assumed everybody did. But you can take like defense mechanisms and all kinds of other things, and Freud's theories still hold today fairly true. He divided everything in ids, superego, and ego. Id, the pleasure principle, hedonism. Id is totally unconscious. It's your wants, desires, instincts, and the unconscious controls your behavior, like behaviorism, the environment. Psychoanalytic is the id. Superego is the little angel. The superego is mores, family values, laws, religion. So the id saying, I wanna, and the superego saying, you can't have it. So we have this conflict. Then we go to the ego. The ego is run by the reality principle, and it's kind of like a court. And the id and superego present their case, and whatever the ego votes, that's 2-1, and that's what you do. So if you're deciding, your id says, I want that cake, and the superego says, no, you shouldn't eat that cake, and the ego goes, I had the cake, you eat the cake. So, so behavior is controlled by the unconscious, and that's Freudian. And psychoanalytic is one of the major theories of counseling here. And then we'll go one more, and then the biological approach, psychobiology, is the 8th ism, but I don't consider that an ism. That's why we always say there's only 4, because I don't count it. Because the psychobiology says all behavior is determined by genes, hormones, and neurotransmitters. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. But if that's the case, we don't need psychologists. We just need a pharmacist, right? So I kind of not consider that ism, because if we all decide on psychobiology, then we don't need psychologists. So I'm going to stop here, and we'll pick up the other ones in later, and we'll pick up on the other theories, the other isms. I think there are 2 more. We don't have any structuralists. We did structuralist functionalism. We did Gestalt. We did behaviorism. We did psychoanalytic. So we got 2 more to go. All right, I'll pick it up then. Talk to you then.